The handcuffs bit into Dr. Maya Patel's wrists as she was dragged past the ICU where her critical patients lay fighting for their lives. Security cameras rolled. Her colleagues watched in horror. But what the HOA enforcers didn't know was that this brilliant cardiologist had just saved the life of someone very powerful, someone who would not let this injustice stand. In 24 hours, the hunters would become the hunted, and a community would rise up in ways no one saw coming. The fluorescent lights of Metropolitan General Hospital cast their familiar sterile glow as Dr. Maya Patel rounded the corner toward the cardiac wing, her stethoscope bouncing against her chest with each hurried step. At 34, she had earned her reputation as one of the city's most skilled cardiologists through countless 18-hour shifts and life-or-death decisions that would crush lesser souls. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail and her scrubs bore the telltale coffee stain from her 4 a.m. start, a badge of honor among the hospital's elite. "Dr. Patel, room 314 is asking for you again," called Nurse Jennifer Martinez from behind the nurse's station. "Mr. Kowalski's vitals are still unstable." Maya nodded without breaking stride. "I'll be right there." "Has cardiology finished reviewing his echo results?" "On your desk," along with 3 more consults, and the conversation was interrupted by the sharp click of hard-soled shoes echoing down the hallway. Maya glanced over her shoulder to see 2 men in ill-fitting security uniforms approaching with purposeful strides. She didn't recognize them, not hospital security, whose faces she knew by heart after 7 years at Metro General. Dr. Maya Patel. The taller man, whose name tag read Davidson, had the kind of mustache that suggested he took himself very seriously. His partner, stockier and red-faced, kept his hand resting near a taser on his belt. "Yes, can I help you?" Maya turned fully, noting how other staff members had begun to slow their pace, sensing tension in the air like animals before a storm. Davidson pulled out a folded document with theatrical precision. "We are with Willowbrook Community Enforcement. You're in violation of HOA Regulation 247B, unauthorized vehicle parking in designated green space." Maya blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your vehicle, a 2019 Honda Civic, license plate." He squinted at the paper. BLH 7429 was photographed parked on the grass median of Elm Street yesterday evening at approximately 11:47 p.m. The absurdity hit her like a physical blow. "I was responding to a cardiac emergency. Mrs. Chen was having a massive heart attack. I had to park wherever I could and run. Regulation 247B makes no exceptions for claimed emergencies," the red-faced Officer Murphy, according to his tag, interjected. "The fine is $500, or you can appear before the HOA tribunal next month." Maya felt heat rising in her chest. Around them, the hospital had grown quieter, with staff members pretending to work while straining to listen. Dr. James Whitmore, the chief of medicine, emerged from his office down the hall, his silver eyebrows drawn together in confusion. "Gentlemen, this is a hospital," Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'm in the middle of my shift. I have patients. Are you refusing to comply with lawful HOA enforcement action?" Davidson's voice had grown louder, more theatrical. Murphy's hand moved closer to his taser. "Maya, what's going on here?" Dr. Whitmore approached, his presence commanding immediate respect. At 62, he'd been running Metro General for 15 years and had the political connections to back up his authority. "These men claim I'm in violation of some HOA regulation because I parked on grass while responding to a cardiac emergency," Maya explained, her disbelief evident. Dr. Whitmore's expression darkened. "Gentlemen, Dr. Patel is one of our finest physicians. She was saving a life, sir. Please step back. This is official HOA business." Davidson's tone had grown aggressive. "Dr. Patel, you need to come with us for processing." "Processing?" Maya's voice cracked with incredulity. "For a parking violation." The situation escalated with frightening speed. Murphy stepped forward, his hand now on his taser. You're being non-compliant. Place your hands behind your back." The hallway fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors from nearby patient rooms. Maya could see Jennifer Martinez's face pale behind the nurse's station. Dr. Whitmore stepped protectively closer to Maya, his jaw set in determination. "This is completely inappropriate," Dr. Whitmore said firmly. "You have no jurisdiction here." "Actually, we do." Davidson produced another document. Emergency Community Enforcement Powers Act, Section 12. Dr. Patel lives in Willowbrook Community and is subject to our authority regardless of location for HOA violations. Maya's mind raced. She thought of Mr. Kowalski in room 314, whose irregular heartbeat could kill him without proper monitoring. Of the surgery consultation she was supposed to review in 20 minutes. Of the community meeting next week where she planned to advocate for the new pediatric wing. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly. "I have patients who need me." Murphy's taser was out now, not pointed but visible. Final warning. Hands behind your back. The tension in the hallway was electric. Maya could see more staff gathering at the edges of her vision: respiratory therapists, orderlies, residents, nurses. All watching. All stunned by the surreal violation unfolding before them. "Maya," Dr. Whitmore said softly, "don't give them an excuse." She looked at him, this man who had mentored her through her residency, who had fought the hospital board to create her current position, who had become like a father to her. In his eyes, she saw the same helpless rage she felt burning in her own chest. Slowly, Maya raised her hands. "Fine. But my patients will be covered," Dr. Whitmore assured her, his voice thick with barely controlled fury. The handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire hospital. As Davidson and Murphy flanked her, beginning to escort her down the hallway, something extraordinary happened. Jennifer Martinez stepped out from behind the nurse's station. Then Dr. Sarah Kim from pediatrics. Then Mike Thompson from maintenance. One by one, the staff of Metro General Hospital began to follow, creating a silent, solemn procession. "Quite a show," Murphy muttered, but his bravado seemed forced now, his eyes darting nervously at the growing crowd. As they approached the elevator, Maya caught sight of room 318's open door. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman whose life she had saved just 48 hours earlier, sat propped up in her hospital bed. Their eyes met through the doorway, and Maya saw recognition dawn on the older woman's face, followed by shock, then unmistakable fury. The elevator doors closed, but not before Maya heard Mrs. Chen's voice, surprisingly strong for someone who had nearly died. "Nurse. Nurse. Get me my phone. Now." As the elevator descended, Maya stared at her reflection in the polished steel doors: a doctor in handcuffs, a healer branded as a criminal, a woman whose only crime had been caring too much to follow arbitrary rules when lives hung in the balance. She had no way of knowing that Mrs. Chen was already dialing her son. She had no way of knowing that her son was Deputy Mayor Robert Chen. And she had no way of knowing that within the hour, the entire city would know her name. Deputy Mayor Robert Chen was reviewing budget proposals in his downtown office when his phone buzzed. His mother's contact photo, a smiling selfie from her 70th birthday, filled the screen. He almost declined the call, knowing she had a tendency to worry about minor hospital protocol, but something in his gut made him answer. "Mom, how are you feeling?" "The nurses said you were resting, Bobby. They arrested her." Mrs. Chen's voice was shaking, but not with weakness, with rage. "They put handcuffs on the doctor who saved my life." Robert set down his pen, his full attention now focused on the phone. "What are you talking about? Who arrested who?" "Dr. Patel. The cardiologist. 2 men came to the hospital and arrested her right in front of everyone. Said she parked on grass." Mrs. Chen's words tumbled over each other. "Bobby, she ran through the rain to save me. She didn't even change out of her wet clothes until after my surgery was done." Robert Chen had inherited his mother's fierce sense of justice along with her stubborn streak. As deputy mayor, he'd seen enough corruption and abuse of power to recognize it instantly. "Mom, slow down. Tell me exactly what happened." As his mother recounted the scene in the hospital hallway, Robert's jaw tightened with each detail. HOA enforcement officers. Tasers in a hospital. Handcuffs on a doctor during her shift. By the time Mrs. Chen finished, his knuckles were wide around his phone. I'm making some calls, he said grimly. Bobby, this woman saved my life. She's a good person. I know, Mom. I know. Across town at the Willowbrook Community HOA office, Davidson and Murphy were basking in their perceived victory. The sterile conference room smelled of stale coffee and ego as they filed their report with HOA President Patricia Hawthorne, a woman whose pursuit of property values had long ago consumed any trace of human compassion. Textbook enforcement action, Davidson reported, straightening his uniform. Subject was non-compliant but ultimately cooperative. Clear message sent to the community about consequences. Patricia nodded approvingly, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the faux wood table. Excellent. We need more high-profile examples. These people think their jobs make them special, above community standards. The whole hospital saw it, Murphy added with satisfaction. Word will spread. None of them noticed the local news van pulling into the parking lot outside. Dr. Maya Patel sat in the cramped holding room at the Willowbrook Community Enforcement Center, still in her scrubs, still wearing the ID badge that granted her access to Metro General's most critical areas. The irony wasn't lost on her. She could walk into an operating room and hold a human heart in her hands, but she couldn't walk to her car without risking arrest. Her phone had been confiscated, but she could hear activity in the hallway. Raised voices. The sound of multiple footsteps. Through the small window in the door, she caught glimpses of people moving past, more than seemed normal for an HOA office. The door opened and Davidson entered with a clipboard and an expression of smug satisfaction. Dr. Patel, you're being released on your own recognizance pending your tribunal hearing. Fine remains $500. When can I return to the hospital? Maya asked, standing slowly. Her legs had stiffened during the 2 hours of waiting, and she realized she'd missed her lunch entirely. Not unusual, but today felt different. Today felt like everything had changed. That's not my concern. Sign here acknowledging receipt of your citation. Maya signed, her medical training making her acutely aware of her elevated heart rate, the tension in her shoulders, the way stress hormones were flooding her system. As Davidson handed her back her phone, it immediately began buzzing with missed calls and text messages. The first text was from Jennifer Martinez. OMG Maya, Channel 7 is here asking about you. Dr. Whitmore wants you to call ASAP. The second was from her colleague Dr. Sarah Kim. The hospital board called an emergency meeting. Everyone's talking about the arrest. The third made her heart stop. Dr. Patel, this is Deputy Mayor Chen. My mother is Mrs. Chen from room 318. We need to talk immediately. Please call me at this number. Outside the HOA office, Maya was greeted by a sight that made her question reality. A crowd had gathered, not huge, but substantial enough to fill the small parking lot. She recognized faces from the hospital. Nurses, residents, even Dr. Whitmore himself standing near a Channel 7 news van. Jennifer Martinez spotted her first and rushed over. Maya. Are you okay? This is insane. They are calling it unlawful detention. Who's calling it that? Maya asked, overwhelmed by the attention. Everyone, Dr. Whitmore said, approaching with the purposeful stride she knew well. The hospital board, the medical association, and as of 20 minutes ago, the city attorney's office. A reporter with perfectly styled hair thrust a microphone toward Maya. Dr. Patel. Channel 7 News. Can you tell us about your arrest today? Maya instinctively stepped back. But Dr. Whitmore moved protectively beside her. Dr. Patel was arrested for the alleged crime of saving a patient's life, he said, his voice carrying the authority of decades in medicine. She parked her car on a grass median while responding to a cardiac emergency that required immediate intervention. Is it true the patient was Deputy Mayor Chen's mother? The reporter pressed. Maya's eyes widened. She pulled out her phone and quickly dialed the number from the text message. It answered on the first ring. Dr. Patel, thank God. This is Robert Chen. I need to apologize for what happened to you today, and I need to tell you that it's not going to stand. Mr. Chen, I was just doing my job. No, doctor. You went above and beyond. My mother told me you stayed with her through the entire night after her surgery, checking on her every hour. You saved her life and then you were arrested for the parking space you used to do it. Maya found herself walking away from the crowd, seeking a moment of privacy for this surreal conversation. I don't understand what's happening. This was supposed to be a simple citation. This was supposed to be intimidation, Robert Chen interrupted, and Maya could hear the steel in his voice that had made him a formidable political figure. The HOA has been targeting professionals in Willowbrook for months: teachers, nurses, social workers. People they see as do-gooders who might oppose their increasingly draconian policies. But why? Control. Fear. Power. Robert's voice hardened further. What they didn't count on was arresting someone with friends in high places. Dr. Patel, I want you to know that I've already spoken with the district attorney, the police commissioner, and the mayor herself. This fake arrest was potentially illegal, and we are going to prove it. Maya felt dizzy, the emotional whiplash of the day finally catching up with her. I just want to get back to my patients. You will. But first, we are going to make sure this never happens to anyone else. As Maya ended the call, she turned back toward the crowd and was stunned to see it had doubled in size. More hospital staff had arrived, but now she saw other faces too, people she recognized from the Willowbrook community. Teachers from the local elementary school. The librarian from the branch library. Even Mrs. Rodriguez, who ran the corner grocery store. Patricia Hawthorne chose that moment to emerge from the HOA office, flanked by Davidson and Murphy. She had prepared a statement defending the arrest, but the words died in her throat when she saw the crowd, the news cameras, and the unmistakable presence of political power gathering against her. Dr. Whitmore stepped forward, and when he spoke, his voice carried across the parking lot with the authority of a man who had spent his career making life-and-death decisions. Mrs. Hawthorne, you made a critical error today. You assumed that intimidation would work, that fear would keep people silent. But you forgot something important about the people who dedicate their lives to helping others. He paused, looking directly into the news camera. We don't back down when we know we're right. Patricia's face had gone pale, but her voice maintained its imperious tone. The HOA acted within its legal authority. The HOA, interrupted a new voice, acted outside any reasonable interpretation of community enforcement. Everyone turned to see a black sedan pulling into the parking lot. The door opened and Deputy Mayor Robert Chen stepped out, followed by a woman Maya didn't recognize but whose presence commanded immediate attention. That's City Attorney Janet Morrison, someone whispered. Robert Chen walked directly to Maya, extending his hand. Dr. Patel, on behalf of the city and my family, I want to thank you for saving my mother's life. He turned to address the crowd and cameras. What happened here today represents everything wrong with unchecked authority. A doctor, a healer, was arrested for the crime of caring more about human life than arbitrary rules. Patricia Hawthorne tried to interject, but City Attorney Morrison stepped forward with a document in her hand. Mrs. Hawthorne, effective immediately, the city is suspending the Willowbrook Community HOA's enforcement powers pending a full investigation into today's incident and other complaints we've received. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Maya found herself staring at Patricia Hawthorne's face as the woman realized her reign of petty tyranny was crumbling in real time. And in that moment, Maya understood that this was bigger than a parking violation, bigger than her arrest, bigger than any single act of injustice. This was about a community finding its voice, about good people refusing to be silenced by bullies with badges. But as Maya returned to Metro General that evening expecting to slip back into her routine quietly, but the hospital felt different the moment she walked through the sliding glass doors. The usual controlled chaos of the emergency department had an undercurrent of electricity, like the air before a thunderstorm. Dr. Patel. The voice belonged to Maria Santos, a respiratory therapist Maya had worked with for 3 years. Room 314 has been asking for you every 10 minutes. He's driving. The nurse is crazy. Maya smiled despite her exhaustion. Mr. Kowalski, the cardiac patient whose unstable vitals had been her priority before the arrest. She headed straight to his room, needing the familiar rhythm of patient care to ground her after the surreal events of the day. Doctor. Mr. Kowalski's face lit up when she entered. At 68, the retired construction worker had the kind of weathered hands that spoke of a lifetime of hard work, but his grip was surprisingly gentle when he reached for hers. I heard what happened. That's complete garbage, pardon my language. It's fine, Mr. Kowalski. How are you feeling? Your rhythm looks much better on the monitor. Don't change the subject, he said with the stubborn authority of a man who'd raised 4 children. My daughter's a teacher, she's been getting hassled by that same HOA bunch for months. Parking tickets, citations for her trash cans being out 6 minutes past collection time. It's harassment, pure and simple. Maya checked his chart, noting the improvement in his cardiac enzymes. The important thing is that you're responding well to treatment. We should have you home by tomorrow. Home to what? More harassment. Mr. Kowalski's monitor showed a slight uptick in his heart rate, and Maya immediately placed a calming hand on his arm. Sorry, Doc. I just get worked up thinking about it. But listen, my brother-in-law works for Channel 12. He wants to do a story about what the HOA's been doing to working families in Willowbrook. As Maya made her rounds, she discovered that Mr. Kowalski wasn't alone in his outrage. In room 322, Mrs. Patterson, recovering from gallbladder surgery, grabbed Maya's hand with surprising strength. Dr. Patel, I may look like a sweet old lady, but I used to organize unions back in the day, she wheezed, her voice hoarse but determined. What happened to you today was union-busting tactics 101. Make an example of someone, scare everyone else into compliance. Mrs. Patterson, you should rest nothing. I've been making phone calls. My grandson is a civil rights lawyer and is very interested in what constitutes unlawful detention by quasi-governmental agencies. Her eyes gleamed with a sharpness that reminded Maya why underestimating elderly patients was always a mistake. That HOA picked the wrong doctor to mess with. By the time Maya reached the cardiac ICU, word of her return had spread throughout the hospital. She found an unusual gathering in the family consultation room, not her patients, but their families. Mr. Kowalski's daughter Lisa, an elementary school teacher with paint-stained fingernails. Mrs. Patterson's grandson David, still in his lawyer suit but with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. Mrs. Chen's son Robert, whom Maya recognized from the news coverage. Dr. Patel, Lisa Kowalski stood up, her voice shaking with emotion. We need to talk to you about what's been happening in Willowbrook. Maya glanced around the room, feeling overwhelmed. I appreciate everyone's support, but I really just want to get back to work. That's exactly what they are counting on, David Patterson interrupted, his lawyer instincts clearly engaged. Dr. Patel, what happened to you today wasn't random. It was strategic. The HOA has been systematically targeting anyone they perceive as a community leader or potential dissenter. Robert Chen stepped forward with a manila folder. We've been collecting documentation all afternoon. In the past 6 months, the Willowbrook HOA has issued citations to 3 teachers, 2 nurses, a social worker, a librarian, and a city firefighter. All for increasingly petty violations. All for people whose jobs involve helping others. Maya sank into a chair as the implications hit her. They are targeting anyone who might organize opposition. Exactly, Lisa said. And it's working. My colleague Sarah got cited for having her garden hose visible from the street. She's so scared of another fine that she won't even attend PDA meetings anymore. The social worker, Rebecca Martinez, got a $300 fine for having her car parked 1 inch over the property line, David added, consulting his notes. She's a single mother working 2 jobs. She can't afford to fight it, so she just pays and keeps quiet. Maya felt a familiar sensation, the same focused clarity that came over her during medical emergencies. The symptoms were becoming clear. Systematic intimidation, financial pressure, isolation of community leaders. The diagnosis was obvious, authoritarian overreach. And like any dangerous condition, it would only get worse if left untreated. What do you need from me? She asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, Jennifer Martinez burst through the door, her face flushed with excitement and anger. Maya, you need to see this. Channel 7 just ran a follow-up story, and the HOA president gave an interview. She pulled out her phone and played the video. Patricia Hawthorne sat behind a mahogany desk, flanked by Davidson and Murphy, looking directly into the camera with cold defiance. Dr. Patel's arrest was completely justified, Patricia said, her voice clipped and authoritative. The Willowbrook community has rules, and those rules apply to everyone regardless of profession. We will not be intimidated by political pressure or media manipulation into abandoning our duty to maintain community standards. The reporter's voice came from off-camera, but witnesses say Dr. Patel was responding to a medical emergency, alleged emergency, Patricia corrected. We have no independent verification of any life-threatening situation. What we do have is clear photographic evidence of a blatant violation of community landscaping ordinances. Maya felt the room go silent around her. The casual dismissal of Mrs. Chen's near-death experience, the reduction of her life-saving efforts to alleged emergency, hit her like a physical blow. But it was Davidson's smirk in the background of the video that pushed her over the edge. They want a fight, Maya said quietly, standing up. They think they can intimidate us into silence, dismiss our work as fake emergencies, and turn our community into their personal fiefdom. She looked around the room at the faces of her patients' families, people she'd helped through some of the worst moments of their lives, people who'd trusted her with their fears and hopes and desperate midnight questions about whether their loved ones would survive until morning. I've spent my entire career fighting to save lives, she continued, her voice growing stronger. I'm not going to stop now just because the threat is different. Robert Chen smiled grimly. What do you have in mind? Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Patricia Hawthorne wants to question whether Mrs. Chen's heart attack was a real emergency. Fine. Let's give her some medical education. She hit dial, and the phone was answered immediately. Dr. Whitmore. It's Maya. I need you to pull Mrs. Chen's complete medical records from 2 nights ago, everything. EKG strips, lab values, surgical notes, the works. She paused, meeting Robert's eyes. We are going to hold a press conference tomorrow, and I'm going to explain exactly what happens during a massive cardiac event, and exactly what the consequences would have been if I'd taken the time to find a proper parking space. Maya, Dr. Whitmore's voice was cautious over the phone, are you sure you want to do this? Once you go public, there's no going back. Maya looked around the room at the determined faces surrounding her, a teacher, a lawyer, a deputy mayor, a nurse, all united by their refusal to be silenced by petty tyrants with badges. Dr. Whitmore, I took an oath to do no harm. Staying silent while bullies destroy our community would be breaking that oath. After she hung up, David Patterson leaned forward with a legal pad full of notes. If we are doing this, we need to be smart about it. The HOA will try to discredit you, claim you're grandstanding or playing victim. We need documentation, witnesses, and a clear legal strategy. And we need more voices, Lisa added. My teacher friends, the other people who've been targeted, they need to see that it's safe to come forward. Maya nodded, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with making a critical decision. Then let's give them that safety. How many people do you think we can get together by tomorrow afternoon? Robert Chen grinned. Doctor, you just inspired a city official, a civil rights lawyer, and a union organizer to work together. I'd say we can get quite a crowd. As the impromptu war council dispersed, Maya returned to her patient rounds with renewed purpose. But as she checked on her sleeping patients, she couldn't shake the feeling that Patricia Hawthorne's defiant interview had been more than just public relations damage control. It had sounded like a declaration of war. And in room 318, Mrs. Chen was wide awake, making phone calls of her own with the energy of a woman who had stared death in the face and refused to blink. The Metro General Hospital auditorium hadn't seen a crowd like this since the groundbreaking ceremony for the new cancer wing. Maya stood at the podium, looking out at a sea of faces that told the story of a community under siege. Front and center sat her patients' families, but behind them were dozens of others, teachers clutching citation folders, nurses still in their scrubs, maintenance workers who'd taken time off, even children holding hand-drawn signs reading, "Our doctor is a hero." The press section buzzed with activity, not just local stations now, but CNN, MSNBC, even a crew from 60 Minutes that had driven down from New York overnight. Maya's arrest had become a symbol of something larger, and the media smelled a story with national implications. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. 2 nights ago, at 11:43 p.m., I received a call that would change my life. Mrs. Eleanor Chen was experiencing what we call a STEMI, an ST elevation myocardial infarction. In layman's terms, she was having a massive heart attack. Maya clicked a remote, and the large screen behind her displayed an EKG strip, jagged lines that looked like abstract art to most people, but to medical professionals told a story of imminent death. "This is Mrs. Chen's EKG when I arrived at her home. You can see the ST elevation in leads 2, 3, and AVF, indicating complete blockage of her right coronary artery. Her cardiac enzymes were through the roof. She had maybe 20 minutes before irreversible heart muscle death would begin." The auditorium was silent except for the click of camera shutters. Maya had prepared for this moment, but seeing the faces in the crowd, people who trusted her, people she'd saved, people whose lives she held in her hands every single day, gave her words a power she hadn't expected. "I parked my car on a grass median because Mrs. Chen's driveway was blocked by the ambulance, and every second counted. In those 20 minutes I supposedly saved by not finding proper parking, we got her stabilized, transported, and into emergency surgery." The cardiologist who operated said later that another 10 minutes of delay would have been fatal. Maya clicked again, showing Mrs. Chen's post-operative EKG, normal sinus rhythm, the beautiful, regular pattern of a heart that would beat for many more years. Yesterday, the Willowbrook HOA called this an alleged emergency. They suggested I might have fabricated a medical crisis to justify my parking violation. Maya's voice hardened. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what death looks like on an EKG. This is what we fight against every single day. And this," she gestured to the normal rhythm, "is what victory looks like in medicine." The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous crescendo. But Maya wasn't finished. "The HOA wants to know if the emergency was real. Mrs. Chen, would you like to answer that question?" The crowd turned as Mrs. Chen, still in her hospital gown but insisting on attending, was wheeled to the front of the auditorium by her son. Despite her recent surgery, her voice carried clearly through the microphone Robert held for her. 2 nights ago, I thought I was going to die, she said simply. "I couldn't breathe, my chest felt like someone was crushing it with a truck, and I was terrified I'd never see my grandchildren again. Dr. Patel didn't just save my life, she held my hand while she did it. She stayed with me through the night to make sure I was okay. And yesterday she was arrested for the parking space she used to reach me." Mrs. Chen's voice grew stronger, the fire in her eyes reminiscent of her son's political intensity. "I've lived in America for 47 years. I came here from Taiwan when I was 23 years old, and I believed in the promise of this country, that hard work and decency would be rewarded, that people who help others would be protected, not punished. Yesterday, I learned that's not always true." The auditorium erupted again, but this time Maya noticed something troubling. Through the glass doors at the back of the auditorium, she could see Davidson and Murphy, flanked by several other men in similar uniforms. They weren't entering, just watching with expressions that made her skin crawl. Dr. Whitmore stepped to the microphone as Mrs. Chen was wheeled back to her spot. "I've been chief of medicine at Metro General for 15 years, he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades in healthcare. "In that time, I've seen doctors make impossible decisions under unthinkable pressure. I've seen them choose between following rules and saving lives. The good ones, the ones like Dr. Patel, always choose to save lives." The applause was interrupted by a commotion at the back of the auditorium. Patricia Hawthorne had arrived with her own entourage, including a man in an expensive suit whom Maya didn't recognize. They pushed through the crowd with the aggressive entitlement of people accustomed to getting their way. "Excuse me," Patricia called out, her voice cutting through the applause like a blade. "I think the community deserves to hear both sides of this story." Maya looked to Dr. Whitmore, who nodded grimly. This was the moment they'd prepared for. "Mrs. Hawthorne, you're welcome to speak," Maya said, stepping aside from the microphone. Patricia strode to the podium with theatrical confidence, flanked by the man in the expensive suit. "Thank you." I'm Patricia Hawthorne, president of the Willowbrook Community HOA, and this is Marcus Webb, our legal counsel. Maya's heart sank. Legal counsel meant they were escalating beyond community enforcement. Dr. Patel has painted a very compelling picture of medical heroism, Patricia continued, her voice dripping with condescension. But what she hasn't mentioned is that this supposed emergency occurred at the home of Deputy Mayor Chen's mother. Very convenient, don't you think? A murmur rippled through the crowd, but Maya saw Robert Chen's face flush with anger. Furthermore, Patricia pressed on, Dr. Patel has a history of flouting community rules. Unpaid citations for lawn maintenance. Delayed response to architectural committee requests, and now this dramatic grandstanding. We have reason to believe this entire incident was staged to avoid accountability for ongoing violations. The auditorium exploded in outrage, but Marcus Webb stepped forward with a document. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to argue about parking tickets. We are here to serve Dr. Patel with a cease and desist order regarding her defamatory statements about the HOA, and to announce that we are filing a civil suit for damages to the association's reputation. Maya felt the world tilt around her. A lawsuit could destroy her career, tie up her savings for years, and send a message to every other potential dissenter that resistance came with a price tag they couldn't afford. But as Webb approached the podium with his legal papers, something extraordinary happened. Mrs. Chen's wheelchair rolled forward, blocking his path. You want to sue the doctor who saved my life? She asked, her voice carrying despite the microphone being several feet away. Then Lisa Kowalski stood up. You want to sue the doctor who stayed up all night to make sure my father's heart kept beating? David Patterson rose from his seat. You want to sue the doctor who's exposed your systematic harassment of community members? One by one, Maya's patients and their families stood up. Then the teachers. Then the nurses. Then people Maya had never seen before, residents of Willowbrook who'd driven across town to attend a press conference about a doctor they'd never met. Within moments, the entire auditorium was on its feet, a silent wall of solidarity that spoke louder than any applause. Patricia Hawthorne looked around the room with barely concealed panic, her careful script crumbling in the face of authentic community outrage. Webb tugged at her sleeve, whispering urgently in her ear. But it was Maya who stepped forward to the microphone, her voice cutting through the tension with surgical precision. Mrs. Hawthorne, you want to sue me for telling the truth about emergency medicine? Fine. But you should know that this community, these patients, these families, these teachers and nurses and ordinary people who believe in helping each other, they are not going to let you intimidate us into silence. Maya looked directly into the news cameras. You picked the wrong fight with the wrong people. We save lives for a living. We don't back down from bullies, and we don't abandon each other when things get difficult. As Maya spoke, her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced down and saw a message from an unknown number. Dr. Patel, this is Judge Sarah Mitchell. I was Mrs. Chen's roommate in college. We need to talk immediately. There are things you need to know about the HOA's legal status. Maya looked back up at Patricia Hawthorne, who was now in heated conversation with Webb, their confidence visibly shaken by the crowd's response. And in that moment, Maya realized that Patricia had made a fatal error. She'd gone from community enforcement to legal warfare, but she'd done it in front of cameras, in front of witnesses, and in front of a federal judge who apparently had very personal reasons to be interested in the case. The hunters had just walked into a trap they didn't even know existed.